So today we are going to learn external identities. Well, in SC-900 series, we have completed module first. We have started second module, and in previous module, we learned the different types of identities in Azure AD. And in next chapter, it's described the types of external identities. Okay, so that's what we are going to learn today. Now, to make it very simple, external identity simply means where Azure AD is helping external identities to log in and use Azure resources. If they're using Azure resources, then it would be Azure AD B2B. And if they are accessing the application whenever it's required, a login or sign in with the help of third-party IDPs like Facebook, Google, and things like that. And then it would be like Azure AD B2C. That is the difference. To make it simple, we got two types of external identities, Azure AD B2B and Azure AD B2C. B2B is for business users and B2C is consumers. We can understand it with a very simple example. Let's suppose we have created an application and we are running that application on Azure virtual machines. Very simple, okay? Now, to create that particular application, we need the help of some developers or coders. And those are because we do not have the developers, let's suppose we outsource the coding to the third-party vendor. They have their own IDs, okay? They have their own organization IDs, and we have our own organization. For example, my organization is pachehratalks.com, and I'm planning to build this application. I don't know coding. I don't have developers. I can't hire them as a personal developer, but I can outsource the code to someone who does this, like a migration factory, like a code factory, like a scripting factory or package factory. These are different terms for those kind of people. So let's suppose I have I requested this vendor to help me build the code and deploy so that I could run my application on Azure. So what I'll do, I'll give them access of my Azure resources, for example, Azure Portal or maybe Azure VM or any other resource which is required, right? That would be business to business. I'm running a business by creating an application and they're already running their business. So I'm giving them the access to take care of my Azure resources, right? So that would be Azure AD B2B. Now, once my application is up and running and I have this application where user needs to log in before they could utilize the application. Now, when they log in, they can create their username and password, or they can log in with Facebook, Google, Twitter, Microsoft account, anything that we are seeing this kind of login everywhere nowadays. So if they are using Microsoft account or any other account there would be Azure AD B2C. If I opt for Azure AD B2C for my application. So you can, to make it absolutely simple, for the front end of the application where the login is required, it's Azure AD B2C because consumers are accessing it. And the back end where we are working on those resources, Azure resources, we have Azure AD B2B, business to business. Now let's try to understand this with the help of a diagram, with the help of a portal, and we'll talk a little more about these external identities. Let me share my screen. In today's world, it's all about collaboration, right? The way I explained about the outsourcing the code, it could be any other reason. where you want someone else to access your Azure resources, right? So that's what we are going to plan here. Just to understand what I try to explain here, let's suppose this is your Azure, okay, Azure tenant. Or so let me call it, this is your Azure AD, what I'm doing, Azure AD tenant, okay, and this is my subscription attached to Azure AD tenant, okay. Now in the subscription I could create my resources, just like I was telling you. I'm running application on my virtual machine. These are resources, could be anything like storage account, app services, AKS, whatever, doesn't mean. These are Azure resources. Now what example I was giving you, if I have to literally show you here, let's suppose this is our VM where I'm deploying the code, and here is that vendor which is helping me to create the code or run the application, okay. For code, let me call it like for code. Now they need to access my Azure, okay, Azure portal or these resources. And how could they do that? The very simple thing we were talking about, this kind of collaboration is Azure AD B2B, which means I'm going to send them an invite from my Azure AD. They will accept the invite and they can log in then with their IDs to my portal and access my resources. Now, once they are able to access, they develop the code, application is up and running. Here are our users, right? And these users are just trying to access this particular application which is running on this VM. When they do that, there is a prompt for login, right? And they can log in with their ID or with Facebook, with Google, with Microsoft account. This functionality is provided with the help of Azure AD B2C, right? Now, let's see a few things about B2B, because for B2B, we send invite to the business users, and those people, once they accept the invite, they appear on our Azure AD as in guest users. I could show you that. If I come here, go to Azure AD, go to users, here I can click on new guest user and send the invite. I could send in the bulk as well, okay? And they appear here under user type as a guest. A member are those users which belongs to this Azure AD, and they are the guest. They belong to different Azure AD, and we have sent them the invite. They accepted the invite. Even you can say they belong to different principal name. Okay. So this is what the Azure AD B2B. These are the external users. With B2B collaboration, external users are managed in the same directory. You can see this is the same directory. This is my directory. I have my own users and also the guest users. And guest users can be managed the same way as employees, added to the same groups and so on. With B2B, SSO to all Azure AD connected apps is supported. So SSO is also supported. Now, how we go and take care of the B2C? For B2C, we need to create another tenant, Azure AD B2C tenant. Azure AD B2C is a customer identity access management, CIAM solution. And This B2C allows external users to sign in with their preferred social, enterprise or local account identities to get SSO to your application that you're publishing out there for the people, right? And this Azure AD B2C can support millions of users and billions of authentications per day. It's pretty good. So this is Azure AD B2C. That's how you can create it. Search here, Azure AD B2C, and you can create it. And then you need to link this with the subscription where you have your application running, and utilize this tenant for your customers. And this is a separate tenant. You do not have your employees in this tenant. You would only have your customers in this tenant. Okay, you have separate tenant for your organization employees or for your B2B. Okay, and Azure AD B2C is an authentication solution that you can customize with your brand so that it blends seamlessly with your web and mobile applications. So this is all we need to learn in this chapter. Chapter says describe the external identities or types of external identities in Azure AD. So we got two types of external identities, B2B and B2C. B2B is all about collaboration with the business. B2C is all about consumer or the customer's access management. I hope this helped, and thank you for watching. You have a good day.